Hello. Do you often find yourself struggling with your discs? You often think, man, I can't be that bad. Well, then we've got a perfect solution for you today. If your discs aren't doing what you want them to, go buy new ones. Problem solved.
So catch me if I fall.
What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here. For those of you who are new to the channel or you've just watched a couple of videos here on the Robbie C channel, we try to help beginners improve one stroke at a time. And for those of you who are unaware, I actually co-host a disc golf podcast over on the Foundation Podcast Network called In the Bag. On In the Bag, we try to, or at least the kind of thought process behind it, was if you were a golfer and you went to the PGA Superstore and you were like, hey, I need help fixing my swing, things like that. They would put you in a simulator and they would have you swing the club, swing those clubs to kind of figure out how to best modify and give you the right clubs with the right flexibility and things like that to help you really succeed before you even hit the course. We want to do the exact same thing on In the Bag and help work through people's disc golf bags to sort of fit them better so that they could adjust what they had in their bag to give them the best chance of success out there on the course. Now, we try to have a special guest every single week that comes on and we work together to work through that bag and even come up with a recommendation and send them a free disc. But sometimes the beauty of scheduling other people is that complications come up and someone had to back out recently. So we filmed an episode that talked about when discs should leave your bag. You guys thought this was just like an advertisement the whole time for In the Bag. I think that the intro hit a soft spot for a lot of people because it's not just like a laughing matter of, oh, the discs aren't doing what I want them to do. There are discs that you continually try to lean on, try to make work in your bag, and they just don't seem to be working. But the process of getting a disc out of your bag and getting a new one in can feel rather complicated. And when should I separate the line between it's the disc's fault and it's my fault? Because this sort of gray area that we live in between can be quite large depending on your skill disparity, or it even widens when it comes to your decisions on what discs you should be adding to your bag. So let's talk about why discs should leave your bag, or at least some of the most common reasons. And I'm gonna use my bag as an example during this. Now, the first reason is pretty straightforward, and it is that the disc didn't do what you thought it would do off the shelf. This is probably, I would say, one of the most common things of why a disc goes into someone's bag and leaves their bag. They're looking for a specific shot shape. They're looking for something that a disc is going to do. Let's say you're a person that really loves the buzz and you're looking for something that flies like the buzz, but just a bit longer. And so someone told you, hey, you should try out the Axiom Crave. It does exactly what the buzz does. It just goes like way farther. So you tell yourself, yes, I would like to buy an Axiom Crave. And you head off to the store and you buy yourself an Axiom Crave. But surprise, surprise, it does indeed not fly like your trusted buzz. And it definitely doesn't fly like a longer form of your buzz. It just flies like its own entity. This entity is something that you do not want in your bag. Therefore, so long, farewell to you, the Crave. Goodbye for now, until we meet again. Now, option number two, just like these two trees, is that the disc no longer flies like it used to. This happens a lot, I believe, with fairway drivers and distance drivers. We can try to throw them so much so that this distance driver has been in my bag for an incredibly long amount of time and it's hit a lot of trees because I'm throwing it really hard because it's a distance driver. Now, because of this, we are at a bit of a crossroads, or stuck between a rock and a hard place. Is the new flight of that disc something that I should sort of lean into and embrace, or is it a flight that maybe overlaps with another disc that I trust, or is it just something that I have no need for? Often this can be the case if you start with a really flippy driver, like let's say a sapphire or a diamond, and it seizes in to become even more flippy, and at that point you're like, I don't need no rollers in my bag, I'm not trying to go to the motor speedway. Now, the third most common reason that people don't or pull discs out of their bag is because it's not the color that you really like to have in your bag. I'm just kidding. I would say the third reason that's probably the most common that discs leave your bag is you threw them into water. They disappeared into the lake or the pond or the creek or the stream, or you just lost it in the middle of a field because you decided to throw 4 discs on that hole into a wide open field because you really want to see a bomb, but you accidentally didn't pick up all 4 of them, and then someone else found your 4 claw and now you're super sad. Now, I feel like all 3 of these are reasons that a disc could or should leave your bag. And I totally understand that because it can really feel like a real menace. I tried so hard to work minions into that statement. And I think we should address each of these, but really what it comes down to, especially for the first two, when you're trying to decide whether a disc should or should not leave your bag, it comes down to accepting the disc at face value. Often we put expectations on how a disc should fly based on the recommendations of others, how we hear people talk about it, or even how it once flew in our life. But here's the deal, y'all. We are throwing plastic circles, and every single time that this hits the ground, a little micro bit of plastic actually goes away on the disc, which means that over time, these discs are all going to change. And if you aren't a particularly amazing golfer and you find yourself in the woods behind these minions, you're probably gonna hit a lot of trees. And guess what, boys? That's gonna change the flight of the disc even faster. Now, pigs are the most common example that I have of this in my bag. I love pigs. Pig is love, pig is life. And when it comes to throwing pigs, I had to understand that over time, especially base plastic pigs are gonna go from being a reliably overstable disc to a straighter option. But even when I throw into these conditions right here, this is what a somewhat fresh but straighter pig flies like. You can see that it wants to fade out. Thankfully, it hit that tree. It's gonna push left as it flies on its flight. Now I threw it nose up, and I didn't really give it a ton of power, so it went that way. But even if I take Precious Child and try to throw it the exact same way, you can see that it not only stands up, but it actually turns a little bit in its flight, and I didn't give that any more power than I gave the first pig. Now, if I'm trying to take Precious Child and throw it in a way that it's filling the pig slot of the bag, I would say that that's a terrible disc and that it's not doing its job very well. But I have to come to the conclusion that based on how I throw pigs, do I need to put a new pig in the bag instead of Precious Child for that slot, which is what I did. And then I have to decide, does Precious Child butt up against something else, or is that a shot shape that I really like and need in my bag? And would that eliminate something else or create a shot opportunity that I really like? Let me tell you, that's a shot shape that I really like. Now, to go back to the topic that we kind of talked about in the intro, is it you or is it the disc? One of the best tests that I feel like you can give to see whether it's you throwing the disc inconsistently or it just not matching with you versus, hey, maybe I was just having an off day, is to play 1 or 2 rounds with that disc where you may not even play like just a 1 disc round because that can be super frustrating over time. But on every single hole, you're going to throw that disc alongside. Maybe it's an extra. I would in fact even encourage that it's a second shot throw so that you can know, all right, so here's what I did wrong on throwing my initial drive. Now I'm gonna take this disc out, I'm gonna test it out and see what happens. As an example of this, I want to talk about the MVP trail. As you saw on last Thursday, I'm working on sort of adding and changing some things around, which is causing me to kind of rebuild these ruts of my throw. So because of that, I am not trying to throw crazy full power by any means. However, I am generating power still, so it's not like I just have to avoid these discs entirely. I feel like if I'm throwing 55 to 56 miles an hour, I can throw a fairway driver. I'm going to take this with a grain of salt, but I love the ozone and I was looking for a longer ozone. I tried the H5 by Prodigy for a little bit and found that it was flippier than I wanted that shot to be. Tried the Gorgon for a little bit, but I have a really hard time on those rounded bottoms trying to keep the angle nose down. So I went out and got myself a trail. This is a 200-foot hole, so I don't think that this is actually a good hole for the trail at all. But if I'm sticking with my mentality of trying other shots, I'm gonna step up first with the disc that I think would be it, which is Precious Child. And I pulled that to the right. So I'm gonna keep my head a little more focused and I'm going to try to adjust accordingly and throw this 10 speed on a 200-foot hole. This is gonna give me good insight into what it flies like with low power. It flies a little overstable with low power. Why? Because it's a 10 speed. Now this is a 280-foot hole. The short basket is only 200 feet away, but I'm gonna act like I'm playing to the long pin, which is out next to the parking lot. So I'm gonna go first by throwing the dune. Bang, just outside the circle. Now we're gonna try to give the trail some, and I'm okay if I actually do try to juice this and go to the parking lot. We'll see what happens. I threw it super nose up, but it's nice to know it is settled right over there next to the pin position. So on a bad throw, if I throw it soft, it's gonna be pretty overstable. And if on a bad throw with some power behind it, I throw it super nose up, it's still going to be not crazy overstable because it didn't fall super far offline, but it still had some stability to it. Once again, in the midst of form change, which we're always kind of in the middle of form change, not always the best time to test these things out. So you take these results with a grain of salt and decide, is it going to stick around? So I'll see in a month when things are a little more solidified, hey, is this actually what I want to keep? Also, I apologize to the man watching this for my form. Sorry, coach, I definitely kept my head too far back on that one. Whoops. Now, we've given a lot of pieces to sort of think about and consider when it comes to bringing a disc in and out. The Venn diagram, is it you, is it the disc? And this is valuable information. I think that truly this is gonna give you feedback on whether or not the disc just doesn't work for you or what the disc is doing, and you get to make the decision on, okay, I can't seem to consistently throw this well, i.e. the Gorgon. Flies really great and feels phenomenal to so many people. I just personally, that disc doesn't work in for me and how I want to throw the disc. Or you have opportunities like the Stalker, which I really love the Discraft Stalker, but the Stalker isn't being made anymore by Discraft, so I went to a more readily available option, and it feels so great to have eagles back in the bag. And it doesn't win the slot for the Gorgon, but it does win the slot for the eagle. But I would say one of the biggest things that you need to look at on why a disc should come out of your bag is confidence. We've got a hole here in town at Inverness Disc Golf Course from the shorts. It's hole 10. Now the shot for that hole is a really overstable disc on a sort of chopped forehand. You don't want to pull it down, but you do have to throw it downhill because you actually can like barely film that hole because it's so downhill off the front of the tee box. So I'm usually standing there with a Justice in my hand and I'm just pulling it down the hill on like a little soft forehand. I'm not trying to crank on it. I just want to give it enough to start it on Anheuser and then let it slowly drift out down the hill. Now, for a long time, I had this shot absolutely dialed, but the last 4 times that I've played that course, I've thrown my red Justice on that shot, and it has thought at no point during its flight, wow, I'm a Justice. I should like fade and like fight out. Nope, it just stays on that Anheuser and fades and turns and turns and turns, and then it never fights out because it gets to the bottom of the hill and I'm super far away and I have no look at the birdie, I'm super far outside. I think if you really look at your game, a lot of us have had discs that we've had in our bag for a long time or we've leaned on a lot and they suddenly stop flying like they used to. We still expect them to fly like they used to, and because of that, they are not reliable. So when we pull that disc out, there's a seed of doubt growing into our heart every single time we throw it. So we're walking into the shots that we throw those discs already at a disadvantage, which is precisely why I had my boy Justin at Disco Dies dye me up this gorgeous Moonshine Justice. This thing is so sick, and it had the Digi stamp Hulk on it already, and Justin really took it to a whole new level. And what's even sicker is that he actually sort of did like a spin dye on the rim so that it's not just as the disc is maybe flying nose up and you're seeing it like that angle that it's going to get that double warp effect, but it actually is going to get that warp effect on the outside. I knew the mold was good, and I knew that I really like throwing the Justice, and so because of that, I grab a brand new overstable Justice and I put it in my bag so that I can once again walk up reliably, knowing when I need something to fade, it's going to be a Justice, and no matter how hard and wide I hang it, it's going to fade. Now, there are a multitude of reasons for you to bring a disc in and out of your bag, and obviously we've talked about so many of them here, but one that I have to mention that left my bag but ended up coming back in a different slot is the Luna. You guys remember in 2023, I decided I started the year by letting you pick my putter and you guys landed on the Luna, and I hated it. I hated putting with this thing. It did not feel great in my hand. I'm a beaded putter guy. I love beaded putters, and the Luna is a beadless putter, and I just felt so much inconsistency throughout the year. Made me really unhappy that my greatest strength in my game ended up being my nightmare. So I just couldn't putt well with the Lunas. But I'm grateful that the Luna's back in the bag and I gave it another chance because I accepted it for what it is, which is a really fantastic throwing putter, and therefore it fills the bag slot beautifully. There are a multitude of reasons the disc would ever leave your bag. The manufacturer discontinuing the disc, limited availability, you not wanting to have a special run in your bag, or even for some people, the battery died. 1 second. Even circumstances and settings where you just got bored with the disc. This was, I think, about ABB on the podcast episode where they discussed this, talked about his vulture, that he loves his vultures, he throws his vultures really well, but he was just tired of it, wanted a new opportunity. Another great reason for a disc to go in and out of your bag. So here's what the call to the comment sections is as we go through this, because hopefully we've answered some questions on why a disc should and shouldn't leave your bag. But I want to know, what is a mold that you held on to for a long time and then when you broke up with it and it left your bag and a new disc came in, you are so eternally grateful that you found that new space, you found that new opportunity, because it's such a game changer and you feel like now this mold is never gonna leave your bag. I can't wait to read all of these fun breakup and success stories on the other side. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Please make it fantastic for someone else too. And if it's time for a disc to move on, if it's not good, don't keep it in the bag. But for now, we're gonna leave you with the birdie.